Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
January 5, 2020, The Haven is History Edition. And first up, we will begin with that as our lead story. Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and J.P. Morgan will end their joint healthcare venture. The company, Haven, had promised to disrupt the way large corporations delivered benefits to their employees. But they could not do so as the JV is disbanding and will cease operations in February. Haven explored a wide range of healthcare solutions as well as piloted new ways to make primary healthcare easier. But at the end of the day, it could not move forward on a business basis. It was acquired into a very high-profile collaboration. It promised very big things, but could not do so. So into something that promised to disrupt healthcare, but at the end of the day was unable to do so. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, the French bank Union de Banques Arabes et Françaises operated U.S. dollar accounts on behalf of sanctioned Syrian financial institutions, and the U.S. Treasury imposed an $8.6 million fine on the French bank. The Paris-based bank facilitated trade finance between Europe and Middle East, Africa, and Asia, agreed to pay the fine and settle potential civil liability. The majority of the bank's violations occurred in late 2011 following an executive order that significantly expanded U.S. sanctions against Syria and permitted the processing of internal transfers on behalf of Syrian entities, or pertained to. The bank processed 127 such transactions, totaling $2.8 billion, all in violation of OFAC. Next up, FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, is expected to give priority to controversial topics in 2001. There's a leadership change and, of course, the economic havoc caused by the coronavirus. Richard Jones, who took over as chairman back in July, said the agenda is filled with important items, but 2 have drawn a lot of interest, and those are accounting for goodwill and disclosure of expenses in 2021. The FASB board has advised on how to account for the impact of the pandemic, delaying implementation of certain rules by a year and temporarily slowing its pace of standard setting. The board, which has 7 members, wants to improve the way the companies recognize the value of goodwill, a hotly debated topic in the world of accounting, and make change to how businesses reveal certain expenses to investors. So rarely do you see FASB in the news, but perhaps it's appropriate for them to have so at this time. And finally, from the Financial Times, John Plinder's Inside Business Finance column warns about the global financial system in 2021 will face a gigantic stress test. This follows from one of the most important lessons which emerged from the coronavirus health crisis in the market last year, and that's the dash for cash, which is a reflection of how big banks' balance sheets have failed, most particularly since the 2008 financial crash, to keep pace with the growth of stock of U.S. Treasury securities that have spurred post-crisis surge in federal deficits. The ability to act as intermediaries in the Treasury market has thus become impaired. And whether that stress will oversee or rather overtake many companies, financial institutions, and financial service companies in 2021 is certainly a risk worth recognizing. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.